For years, David Benavidez's dream fight has been against one man, Saul Canelo Alvarez. In the eyes of many boxing fans, it was the ultimate showdown. The young, undefeated Mexican-American powerhouse versus the reigning superstar of the sport. Benavidez had built his career with a ferocious style, a high work rate, and a reputation for breaking down opponents with relentless pressure. But despite the hype, the trash talk, and the fan demand, the fight never materialized. Canelo, for reasons only he and his team truly know, refused to step into the ring with him. Whether it was a question of timing, risk, or politics, the answer was always the same. No. For Benavidez, the repeated rejections were more than just frustrating. They shaped the course of his career. Unable to secure that mega fight at super middleweight, he was eventually forced to move up to the light heavyweight division, a decision that many fighters dread, as it means facing bigger, stronger opponents. But Benavidez didn't move up in search of an easier path. If anything, his ambition grew even bolder. At 28 years old, entering his prime, he was determined to make his mark among boxing's biggest and most dangerous champions. His eyes quickly locked onto Dmitry Bivol, the technically brilliant Russian boxer who had already made headlines by defeating Canelo in 2022. For Benavidez, Bivol represented two things: redemption for the fight he never got against Canelo, and a chance to prove himself at the very top of a new weight class. He worked his way into the mandatory position with the WBC, earning his shot after Bivol's high-stakes rematch with Artur Beterbiev for the undisputed title. By the time that rematch concluded, with Bivol again victorious, Benavidez's resume had only grown more impressive. He had dismantled David Morrell, another highly regarded rising star, in a dominant performance that made him the #1 contender for the WBA title as well. In the eyes of the boxing world, the stars were aligning for a Benavidez-Bivol clash. It had all the ingredients: an undefeated American versus an undefeated Russian, a battle of styles, and a fight that could crown a new dominant force in the division. But the reality of modern boxing is that skill and rankings aren't always enough to make a fight happen. Enter Turki Alalshikh, the Saudi royal and influential boxing promoter who had become one of the sport's most powerful deal makers. Alalshikh had other ideas. Despite Benavidez's positioning as a mandatory challenger, the Saudi promoter showed little interest in making the fight with Bivol happen immediately. Instead, his focus was on a lucrative trilogy bout between Bivol and Beterbiev, a series that had already captivated fans. That was the first major roadblock for Benavidez. The second came shortly after. Bivol vacated the WBC belt entirely, sidestepping the mandatory defense against Benavidez. To make matters worse, the Russian appeared to be prioritizing another high-profile rematch with Beterbiev instead. For a fighter like Benavidez, who thrives on chasing the biggest challenges, this was more than just a delay. It was a sidestep that risked keeping him in limbo. The highly anticipated Bivol-Beterbiev trilogy was supposed to be one of the crown jewels of the boxing calendar. But fate, as often happens in the sport, had other plans. Bivol was forced to undergo back surgery to address an old injury, putting him on the shelf and bringing all those negotiations to a halt. For Benavidez, it was another twist in a career filled with almost moments. Rather than wait indefinitely, the 28-year-old decided to take matters into his own hands. With the WBC title now vacant, he claimed the belt and set his sights on the next available big-name opponent, Anthony Yarde, the hard-hitting British contender known for his explosive power and willingness to take risks. The two are now set to face off on November 22nd in Riyadh, a fight that will be part of one of Saudi Arabia's increasingly grand boxing cards. Despite the frustrations and missed opportunities, Benavidez remains laser-focused on the bigger picture. In interviews, he's been open about the fact that he still wants to fight all three of the division's most dangerous names, Canelo, Bivol, and Beterbiev, before his career is over. That's an ambitious goal in today's boxing climate, where political barriers, network allegiances, and financial negotiations often kill fights before they ever reach the ring. But Benavidez isn't interested in excuses. "I'll probably have to choose the hardest option for any fighter," he told Fight Hype recently. "Because on this side is Beterbiev, there's Bivol, and maybe Canelo in the future. I'm fine with that. I'm not scared at all." His words reflect a fighter's mindset, a willingness to walk toward the fire instead of away from it. Interestingly, Benavidez's next fight will take place on the same card as Artur Beterbiev, who will be defending his titles against WBA number 11 contender Dion Nicholson. Beterbiev, for his part, has his own frustrations with Bivol's withdrawal, as he was also gearing up for their trilogy bout. In a way, both Beterbiev and Benavidez are caught in the same holding pattern. Big fights promised, big fights delayed. For now, neither Bivol nor Beterbiev is fully available to face Benavidez. But the American isn't panicking. In fact, he's surprisingly calm about the repeated delays. Part of that comes down to the business side of boxing. Benavidez is earning well, and he knows that in this era of mega fights, patience can often pay off more than rushing into the wrong deal. Well, the first thing that reassures me is that I've been making very good money, he said. And also, there's no need to rush, buddy. Everyone has their time. There's also another factor keeping Benavidez at ease: his trust in Turki Alalshikh. Despite the earlier snub, Benavidez seems convinced that the Saudi promoter has the resources and determination to eventually make these blockbuster fights happen. It looks like it's very close to being finalized, he explained. Like I said, Turki Alalshikh is willing to finalize all these fights. Now I'm cornering everybody, and there will be no room for anyone to escape. Still, as any experienced boxing fan knows, interest in the other side is essential. Benavidez can be ready, willing, and able, but unless fighters like Canelo, Bivol, and Beterbiev agree to step into the ring with him, these dream fights will remain just that, dreams. And in the often chaotic landscape of professional boxing, dreams can take years to become reality. David Benavidez's journey to this point has been anything but smooth. For years, he campaigned at super middleweight, dominating every opponent who stood in his way. His size, power, and relentless pressure made him one of the most feared fighters in the division. Yet, despite his unbeaten record and his status as a two-time WBC champion, the one fight he truly wanted, against Canelo Alvarez, never materialized. Each time negotiations came close, they collapsed, often with Canelo's camp expressing little interest in facing the younger, hungrier challenger. These repeated snubs forced Benavidez to make a difficult decision: move up to light heavyweight in search of new challenges. When Benavidez arrived at 175 pounds, he wasted no time making his intentions clear. He was not there to simply test the waters. He wanted the biggest names and the toughest fights. Dmitry Bivol, the man who had beaten Canelo in a stunning upset and later unified titles against Artur Beterbiev, became his primary target. Benavidez was not just another contender calling out the champion. He was the official WBC mandatory challenger, a position earned through his dominance in the ring. His victory over David Morrell cemented his status, proving he could not only hang with the best at light heavyweight, but potentially beat them. However, the politics of boxing once again threw obstacles in his path. Promoter Turki Alalshikh, a major player in the sport thanks to his influence in Saudi Arabia's growing boxing scene, had other ideas. Rather than booking Benavidez Bivol, Alalshikh wanted to focus on the high-profile trilogy between Bivol and Beterbiev. For Benavidez, this was a frustrating development, especially when Bivol unexpectedly vacated his WBC belt, a move widely interpreted as a way to avoid the mandatory fight. This left Benavidez in limbo, holding a championship title but without the matchup he had been promised. The situation worsened when Bivol underwent back surgery, sidelining him for months. The anticipated trilogy with Beterbiev collapsed, leaving both fighters inactive for the time being. Benavidez, determined not to waste his momentum, accepted a fight with Britain's Anthony Yarde, scheduled for November 22nd in Riyadh. While Yarde is a dangerous opponent with a loyal fan base, the bout is seen by many as a stepping stone rather than the ultimate prize Benavidez is chasing. Still, the fight gives Benavidez the opportunity to stay active, showcase his skills, and send a message to the rest of the division. Even with the delays, Benavidez remains remarkably composed. His confidence comes from two sources: financial security and trust in Alalshikh's vision. The 28-year-old has made it clear that he is earning career-best purses under the Saudi promotional banner, easing the pressure to accept less meaningful fights just to stay busy. More importantly, He believes Alalshikh has both the resources and the determination to eventually deliver the dream fights against Bivol, Beterbiev, and possibly Canelo. In his mind, it's only a matter of time before those matchups are finalized. But for all his confidence, Benavidez knows that boxing is as much about timing as it is about talent. Champions come and go, opportunities rise and fall, and one bad night can derail even the most carefully planned career path. That's why his fight against Yard carries more weight than it might seem on paper. A dominant performance will reinforce his claim as the most dangerous man in the division and keep pressure on Bivol and Beterbiev to face him. On the other hand, any stumble, even a narrow win, could give his rivals an excuse to look elsewhere. For now, Benavidez continues to train with laser focus, knowing that every punch he throws in Riyadh will bring him one step closer to the legacy he's chasing.